For half a century, Diane Keaton stood as Hollywood's symbol of independence, a woman who danced through the glamour of fame on her own terms, defying every rule written for her generation. She dated some of the most famous men alive, won an Academy Award, became a fashion icon, and raised 2 children as a single mother. Yet through it all, she remained famously unmarried, proudly declaring that a life without marriage was not a life unlived. But in her final months, before her peaceful passing on October 11th, 2025, Keaton finally allowed the world to see behind the curtain. What she revealed wasn't simply a story of romance. It was a truth that reframed every choice, every film, and every layer of the woman we thought we knew. Hidden in plain sight for more than 5 decades was one profound love, a relationship that shaped her art, her identity, and her solitude. What followed was a confession that left Hollywood reeling. It began quietly during what should have been an ordinary interview and ended as one of the most emotional revelations ever to grace a television screen. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. When Barbara Walters came out of retirement for one last interview with Diane Keaton, the public expected nostalgia, a graceful reflection on a lifetime of achievement. Instead, what they witnessed was silence, the kind that freezes a studio. When Walters asked if Keaton ever regretted choosing independence over marriage, Diane didn't respond right away. She removed her trademark glasses, brushed away tears, and whispered words that would echo through the entertainment world. There was someone. There's always been someone. The audience held its breath. In those few, trembling words, half a century of mystery began to unravel. Keaton's carefully maintained image, the witty singleton, the woman who claimed happiness alone, suddenly looked different. Viewers could feel the walls of privacy crumble, and behind them stood not an icon but a woman finally ready to tell the truth. The name that emerged sent shockwaves across Hollywood: Jack Nicholson. Her charismatic co-star from Something's Got to Give, the ultimate Hollywood rebel, had been far more than a friend. Their connection began in the 1970s when both were exploding into stardom. "We met right after Annie Hall," Keaton later said. "There is something immediate, an understanding, an energy neither of us could explain." They were both involved with others, both fiercely ambitious, and neither ready to surrender freedom for love. Yet they remained intertwined, orbiting each other through the decades. What the public saw as chemistry on screen was, in truth, a lifetime of emotions finally surfacing through art. Rewatching Something's Gotta Give now feels almost too intimate. The tears Diane sheds when Nicholson's character leaves her, the laughter that turns to heartbreak, the final scene of forgiveness, all feel painfully authentic. What had seemed like acting was a window into a love neither could claim publicly. Director Nancy Meyers, when asked later if she had known, smiled but said nothing. Insiders would later describe the film as a safe place for them to finish an unfinished conversation. For 50 years, their lives ran like 2 parallel rivers, close enough to hear each other's current, but never quite merging. "When I was ready, he wasn't. When he was, I was somewhere else," Diane explained. "We kept missing our moment." The missed timing became the rhythm of their lives. Nicholson moved through his high-profile romances. Keaton found herself drawn to brilliant, complicated men: Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, but always searching for something she couldn't find again. "I think I was always looking for Jack in other people," she admitted. Their careers mirrored this dance. Both turned to directing in the 1980s. Both reinvented themselves in the 2000s. Even when years passed without contact, their choices seemed to echo each other. Film historians, revisiting their careers, now describe a shadow dialogue between their works, 2 artists constantly responding to one another without ever sharing the stage. What appeared to be independence now looked like devotion, an unspoken loyalty to a connection that refused to fade. Fashion became Diane Keaton's armor and language. The crisp suits, the bowler hats, the ties and vests, her so-called Annie Hall look, became a revolution in women's style. But According to her final confession, that signature began with a single moment. The first time I saw Jack off set, she recalled, he wore this vintage vest over a white shirt with a silk tie. It was confident and strange and completely his. The next week, I borrowed a vest and wore it with a hat. I felt free. It felt like me. That outfit inspired the defining image of her career and changed American fashion forever. Ralph Lauren may have supplied the clothes, but the spark came from something far more personal, a tribute woven in fabric to the man she could never fully have. Looking back at photos now, the resemblance is uncanny. Both wore clothes that mixed vulnerability with defiance. It was as if her style became the physical manifestation of their connection, her independence, ironically born out of love. Away from the camera, Keaton's passion for restoring historic homes was legendary. She poured herself into every renovation, transforming neglected California architecture into timeless art. To the world, it was simply another sign of her creativity. To her, it was something deeper. Jack loved Spanish-style homes, she said. We once spent a day just driving around Los Angeles, talking about the house we'd live in someday. That never happened. But maybe every house I restored was my way of finishing that conversation. Each property became a dialogue with memory. She would choose intricate tiles, sunlit courtyards, and bold beams, the exact details Nicholson once admired. Then she'd sell the home and start again, never settling, always building. I think I kept moving, she confessed, because I couldn't stay in a place where he wasn't. Architectural writers now interpret her restorations as emotional landscapes, spaces she created for the life that almost was. For decades, Diane Keaton's refusal to marry made her a feminist icon. She insisted that a woman didn't need a husband to live fully, and she seemed to prove it. But her confession revealed another layer. There was a moment, she said softly, when it could have gone another way. In the early 1980s, both she and Nicholson were single. For a brief window, marriage might have been possible. But even then, Jack wasn't ready. He once told her, "I believe in fidelity, just not forever." Keaton understood what that meant. Rather than settle for a version of love that would break her, she chose authenticity over compromise. I decided if I couldn't have that life with him, she explained, I'd build one that still felt true to me. Her independence wasn't rebellion, it was preservation. She wasn't rejecting love, she was protecting the only one that had ever truly defined her. To outside observers, she seemed liberated. Inside, she was simply loyal to a connection that couldn't survive in the traditional frame. In the mid-1990s, Keaton made another groundbreaking choice. She adopted her daughter Dexter at age 50, and her son, Duke, a few years later. At a time when Hollywood questioned single motherhood, she redefined what a family could look like. What the world didn't know was who she called first. Jack, she revealed, smiling through tears. Everyone else had questions. He just said, "Those kids hit the jackpot with you." When she brought her baby home, Nicholson appeared at her door with a giant stuffed giraffe and a freezer full of food. No press, no cameras, just support. He was always there, she said, not as their father, but as someone who cared enough to show up. That hidden tenderness explained why she always defended Nicholson publicly, even when others criticized his wild reputation. Behind the headlines stood a man who, for her, had quietly shown the kind of loyalty he never displayed to anyone else. In the late 1980s, Diane Keaton found herself in another powerful relationship with Al Pacino, her Godfather co-star. The two shared an intense, creative bond that fascinated the media, but even that love story was haunted by the ghost of Jack Nicholson. Al knew, she admitted, he knew about Jack, about our history. He never said it directly, but it was there. She recalled one evening when, by accident, she called Al Jack. He froze. Later he told her quietly, "I'm not going to compete with a ghost." That single sentence captured the truth she had tried to deny. Pacino might have been the man she could have built a stable life with, but part of her heart had already been claimed. The relationship ended, and she never spoke of it publicly again. Only now do we understand why. In 2018, Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, appeared together for the last time at the AFI Lifetime Achievement Celebration honoring their friend Nancy Meyers. Their playful banter and lingering warmth reignited public fascination. Viewers saw chemistry, they didn't see the truth. That night was our goodbye, Keaton revealed. Nicholson was already showing early signs of cognitive decline. There were flashes of clarity and moments of confusion, she said. We both knew it might be the last time we'd stand together like that. Her toast that night included a cryptic line, "Some connections defy explanation." The audience applauded, unaware that she was speaking about them. Not their characters, not the film, but a love that had lasted quietly behind the scenes for decades. He retired from public life soon after. She kept his confidence, visiting privately, protecting his dignity, just as he had once asked. He told me, "Don't let me become a spectacle," she said. That appearance was his gift to me, one last moment before the curtain closed. What finally pushed Diane Keaton to reveal everything was a promise made during her last visit to Nicholson's home in early 2025. Both were confronting mortality, she with her illness, he with fading memory. He had this moment of clarity, she recalled. He looked at me and said, "Tell them we were real. Don't let them turn it into gossip. Tell them it mattered." Those words stayed with her. For decades, she had protected their privacy. Now, she realized protecting it meant the truth might die with them. Breaking that silence wasn't betrayal, it was fulfillment. "The greatest regret of my life," she said, "is not that we never married. It's that we never had the courage to admit what we were, when it still could have changed everything." In her final interviews, she spoke openly of how that love defined her. In the clothes she wore, the home she restored, the independence she championed, the performances she gave. Every piece of her public persona was touched by the private truth of that connection. Diane Keaton's revelation doesn't diminish her as the emblem of independence. It deepens her humanity. Her story now stands not just as a tale of autonomy, but as a lesson in how love can exist beyond definition. She proved that devotion doesn't always require possession, that a life built alone can still be intertwined with another soul's influence. Her independence wasn't emptiness, it was expression. Every laugh, every eccentric gesture, every offbeat outfit became a way to keep love alive without losing herself to it. Hollywood often tells us that happy endings mean marriage, forever, closure. Keaton's